Thank you all for joining me here. So I'm going to start off with a story. So one day a man went up to the Buddha after he had achieved his enlightenment and asked him, as he said, I have a profound question for you, a really difficult one. He says, okay, so what is it? He says, I want you to tell me what is going to happen to me after I die. And the Buddha pauses and says, why do you ask that question? He says, if I know what's going to happen to me after I die, I can direct my life towards whatever that ultimate goal is. What happens to me will help me to drive how I live today. He says, okay, all right, so let's think about this. He says, what if you were going to have a rebirth? Imagine you're going to die from this world in this lifetime and you're going to come back in a different form, in a different shape, in a different color, in a different costume. He says, okay, if that was the case, then I would probably live with being a generous person. And why that's important is that I want to be able to accumulate good karma because I want to come back and have a good life. And I want to live with certain values and certain purity because that will help me to be able to carry those sanskaras. Sanskaras is your personality traits. It says, if I do something right, it's very likely that that's going to linger with me and it's going to come back when I take my rebirth. Okay? And if I were to come back, then probably I want to live with kindness and compassion because I want the blessing of everybody around me because those blessings are going to help me to have a good life when I come back. And Buddha says, so be it, my friend, that's great. And he says, okay, now think about the other possibility. Now, what if this was your only life? And so this man ponders and he says, perhaps then I would like to spend everything I have because I'm not going to take anything with me. So maybe I want to live a generous life. He says, okay, then if I were to not come back, then I would still want to live with integrity and with purity because I will sleep better no matter how many days are left in my life. And that's important to me. And he says, if I were not to come back and reincarnate, then perhaps I would want to live with kindness and compassion because that's the right thing to do anyway. And the Buddha listens to him and smiles and he says, just so, my friend. So if you notice here, the Buddha does not tell him what to do. The Buddha gives him the tools for the man to discover for oneself what would be the right course of actions. So this is a story that I started this conversation with because we are always telling ourselves stories inside our head. The question is, what is the story? And that story will determine the course of your actions and how you're feeling. You see, the human brain that has evolved over eons, the thing that separates the human brain from any other species on this planet is called the prefrontal cortex. That's the space. Now, if you all raise your hand up and make a fist, put your thumb inside and put your fingers around it to wrap it, that space between your second and your third knuckle, that's the part of the brain that I have called the prefrontal cortex. They're sitting right here behind the forehead. That's the most advanced part of our brain. It's the most newest part in the evolutionary cycle. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for being the sandbox where we have imagination, where we are able to think of ideas that are not really concrete. We are able to play around with this before this come into being, into physicality. While this is a gift to mankind, it has also become the biggest curse to mankind. Guess why? Because as much as we are the only species that are able to postulate, that are able to hypothesize, we're the only ones who overuse it. We're the only ones who overthink, and therefore we're the only ones who worry and become anxious, and then we need to come here on a Wednesday night and sit down and meditate with J. There's no other species that would be having to do this. So what is the problem? The problem is that we are making up stories that are causing our blood to boil, our hearts to beat faster, or for us to become anxious, worried, losing sleep. Now, if you think about it, in the year 1900, if you were a woman between the ages of 20 to 40 years old, the highest rate of death in that category, in the demographic, was because of childbirth. And the other causes that human beings died at that time was things like tuberculosis, was things like influenza, etc. Now, fast forward about 100 years, we don't die so much because of childbirth. We don't die so much because of tuberculosis, but the number one cause of death is either hypertension, cardiac arrest, early onset of diabetes. So psychosomatic driven illnesses is nearing the top reasons we are dying. And where does this all begin? It begins with the story that we are playing inside of our head. And this mental energy that we put out because of this gift that we have, this creativity, this ability for us to be able to come up with ideas, this consciousness, when misused, it's expending the worst form of greenhouse gases effect, if you will. It's our form of our mental form of greenhouse gases that is poisoning. That's such a waste of this precious resource that is ruining the environment in our relationships that we surround ourselves with. So one of the common misconceptions is that worry is care. No, worry is not care. Worry is rooted in fear, and care is rooted in love. And we all know that fear and love are diametrically opposite ends of the spectrum. They are polar opposites. And so when you think that you're worrying for something to actually, because you have care and concern for it, you couldn't be further from the truth. Now this evolutionarily, this idea of anxiety and stress has actually had a role. They help to protect us in the case of being able to predict and see potential threats. It was important for us to be concerned about social rejection, so we know how to behave. We know how to not to be too selfish, so we need how to be a social creature. And worry and stress and anxiety was something that had helped us to stay alert from being duped. But when you take that worry and extend the level of fantasizing it into a point of predicting catastrophe, you're actually ruining your own health, not only for yourself, but also for the ones around you. So now let's talk about what might be an antidote. So today's theme is around the idea that this story that you're playing inside of your head, this story may never happen. This story that you're playing inside of your head, if you stop and look at it, examine and say, it is only a story. And a story, by virtue of its name, is never true. It is something that you're estimating, you're guesstimating, that's your prognosis. You're waking up something either from the dead that is influencing it, something that's from the past that you're bringing back to influence your state of being right now that's causing your state of worry, or you're cooking up, you're conjuring a fictional future that might actually never ever happen. It's something that's a figment of your imagination. And in the process of either bringing up the dead or creating this fictional future, what you're missing is essentially everything that we have, which is the here and the now. So the next time you see yourself feeling anxious, and this, you see, the first step in the process is to even catch yourself creating and conjuring that story that you're lost in, so much so that the flickering inside the screen of your mind, not so much of outside, just the inside predominates your consciousness, your reality, where you can't even tell the fiction from the facts. And you're wallowing inside of that story that you're creating. And so the first step is to see it, to see that it is a figment of your own imagination, and asking yourself, this story may never happen. Charlie Chaplin said, nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our troubles. Nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our troubles. With that, my friends, let us shift gears and dive into an exercise where I want to lead you from this conversation into feeling yourself inside your body, into your head space, and then into your heart space. So for that, I want you to please do what is called a swan dive. If you're seated, that's perfectly fine. I'm seated here, so I'm not going to be bending too much, but I want to use the arms as an example of what a swan does. I want you to please raise your arms with your palms facing outwards. And as you're bringing your palms down, breathing out, emptying your lungs. So let's do this a couple more times. Breathing in as you're raising your arms. Let the back of your hands touch as they meet up above your head. And you're breathing out as you're lowering. And if you're standing, if you're in a position to do that, I want you to go ahead and actually bend forward and dive down as far below, touching your forehead to your knees. So let's do this one more time. As you're rising up, breathing in nice and deep to the bottom of your lungs, watching the diaphragm expand. And as you come down, breathing out, emptying your lungs, letting go of what the body does not need. Now go ahead and do the downshifted eye gaze, or completely close your eyes, whatever feels comfortable to you. And let us now turn this journey inwards into the heart space. Continuing the breathing, making it nice and deep. Watching the belly expand and collapse. Just like when you see a baby sleeping very peacefully, you'll notice the rise and collapse of the abdomen. Not the chest. As we breathe nice and deep like this, you notice that you automatically begin to relax your body. The mind and breath are deeply interconnected. As you deepen your breathing and regulate it to be slow, your mind follows. And the opposite is also true. If you let your mind go haywire, bouncing from one thing to the next, you'll notice your breath is being withheld. It becomes erratic. As you're breathing slowly and deeply, gently into your diaphragm, allow this oxygen that you're taking in to flow into your entire body. I want you to remember that your original nature is one of peace. And as you're relaxing, you're returning to your natural state of peace. And peace happens to be best friends with love and joy. As you become peaceful, you return to your natural state of being who you really are. Pure, unconditional love. And as you root yourself in your natural state, energy in any way, shape, or form radiates. And you are now radiating this energy of peace and love. Filling your environment, creating a sanctuary. And anyone who enters into the sanctuary that is created from your vibrations also feels peaceful and loved. I breathe in calmness and breathe out calmness. I breathe in peace and breathe out tranquility. I breathe in love of the source. And I radiate as I breathe out this love, this divine unconditional love. I breathe in joy. And I breathe out unbridled happiness. My mind, my body, and heart are overflowing with these lovely feelings. All forms of tension, anger, fear, and sorrow have dissolved. At this moment in time, I feel very tranquil. I am light. At this moment in time, I am content and at one with myself. All is well. And all will be well. I want you to notice how you feel right now. It's important to acknowledge the shift you experience when you give yourself the gift of self-compassion. And if you can summarize how you feel right now in one word, what would that be? Thank you. So just whenever you're ready, I'd love to hear how you feel right now. What's that one word that came up? I love this. I'm feeling peaceful. I'm feeling relaxed. I'm feeling blissful, grateful, calm, present. That's amazing, you guys. You see how just in a few minutes, how you can completely unwind. I noticed that a large majority of you are joining me at the end of your day, and isn't that a beautiful gift to be able to come together like this in a very succinct session, and I'm inside me. That's wonderful. I'm feeling light and peaceful, relaxed, calm, and grateful. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm so glad that this experiment is paying off. Like I said, this is my first time doing this session here on this platform. I've done sessions in different things, but this is brand new, and you never know when you get together for the first time how it's all going to play out. So I got a question. So do you have anything you want to ask me? How did it go? Could I do something better? Okay, so I've got a question here. Jay, where have you been all my life? I love it. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Okay, that's, I guess, a rhetorical question, not something that I can necessarily point answer to. I guess there's always a time and place for everything. We always find each other when we need to, right? So this some other questions. How do I overcome anxiety at work where I feel dizzy and sick and I want to run? I'm assuming that question, Tiffany, is you want to run away or you want to just run on, take a break in the middle of the day and run 5 miles. I'm not sure. Thank you in advance. Why don't you go ahead and clarify where you want to run? Run from your work or run just for exercise? So run from work. Okay, thank you. So here's the thing. We are all incredibly capable creatures. We are all incredibly motivated beings. This is a question of finding an alignment with what my value systems are and what are the objectives of this particular environment, this particular group of people that I'm working with. And if I see a sense of alignment, I don't need no food, I don't need no water, I don't need no sleep. I am 150% committed. Every cell of my body is oozing with enthusiasm to go and pursue this thing that is our common goal. But when that goal of this objectives that are laid out by this entity, this company or this organization or this outfit that you're working with is not aligned with the DNA of my species, my being, then guess what? There is an automatic repulsion, which is what you're expressing, which is you want to run the heck out of there. And so you've got to ask yourself, what is keeping you tied? You are holding on to the leash that is, as in this case, you're trying to run away from it, but you're the one that is the source or the cause of causing that burn, if you will. Okay? So ask yourself, maybe there is valid reasons. Maybe there is that security, that what there seems to be some sort of incentives that you're getting out of this particular work that is keeping you in this place. And say, maybe, sometimes it works out that way, wherein you are spending those 8, 9, 10, whatever number of hours at work, that it gives you the ability to go out after work and realize your dreams, whatever those may be. But that choice is something that you are making. Nobody else is responsible. And if the circumstances have to change, only you can do it. Okay, so let's see. I am so excited for the next 7 weeks. Okay, great. So today we talked about this idea that story that we're playing in our head may not be true. In the next session, what I'm going to talk about is actually 3 questions that cognitive behavior therapy teaches us about changing the narrative that we're playing in our head. Okay? So that's the theme for the next session. Since many of you are talking about, you're excited about the next few sessions. So that's the theme for the next session. So I've got a question here. Amita is asking, how do I overcome increased anxiety right when I wake up, when I feel palpitations? Okay, great question. So I have a whole workshop that I do on sleep management. And so when I talk about sleep, it's also waking up as part of that, because there is a buffer period before you fall asleep and when you wake up. Both of these cusp times, I would say the cusp is because that's when your conscious mind is still asleep and your subconscious mind is completely awake, and there is that change of the seesaw, if you will, change of balance when your conscious mind is waking up, as you're waking up into the world, as your functions, your activities, your awareness and your technology, all of that is beginning to start beeping and chiming and so on and so forth. So it's a very important time. So these 2 areas is what I refer to as sleep hygiene. Actually, there's a scientific term. There's actually a whole research that is dedicated to this idea of sleep hygiene. So those 2 entities, that when you're waking up and when you're falling asleep, are super important in how you program your subconscious mind. So I'll leave you with one tip. Like I told you, I can give you an entire weekend course on this topic, but I'll leave you with one tip. As you heard the word sleep hygiene, as you go into a hospital, you're getting ready for surgery, guess what? There's a certain amount of hygiene so that you don't get infected. You don't get worse off than when you entered that hospital, that operation theater. And that is with this idea of detoxing, that is with this idea of creating a space that is clean of any germs, so to speak. So what is that equivalent to in this example of the human mind? It is the detoxing of the technology, the onslaught of technology. Okay, so try not to engage in technology 30 minutes before you fall asleep and the first 1 hour after you wake up. And I'm telling you, this is from my experience. This is what I practice. This is a super important, because the moment you allow your mind to start worrying, so that is WHIR, worrying, the moment you wake up, guess what? Somebody else, something else is already taking charge of your entire state of consciousness. No, rein it back in, keep control, set yourself that time, that precious morning hours, whether you call it prayer, you call it meditation, call it whatever you want, affirmations even. But that's a time for you to set your train on the right tracks. Where do I want to go down this? Which path do I want to go down today? What is going to be my priorities? Those are things that you set for yourself in those first few hours when you wake up, and also those last few minutes before you fall asleep. So folks, with that, I thank you. I went over a little bit, but it's our first time. I just wanted to give ourselves the benefit of being able to ask questions and have any concerns addressed. I hope you liked my format. If you have any suggestions, please, all of you are part of this Inside Timer, go ahead and hit me up with a comment and let me know what I can change. If there's something that works and my voice is not loud enough, or the music was not good enough, whatever it is, just let me know what you want. And I'm telling you, I'm completely in collaboration with you guys to create an amazing experience over the next course of the 7 weeks, the next 6 weeks, the 6 sessions that we have left for us. And with that, I just want to say that this is what I do full time. I've left my engineering career. This is what I do. This is everything. This is what lights my fire. This is what drives me to help to inspire one another and to be inspired myself. So if you want to go ahead and hit that donate button at the end of the session, I would very much appreciate it. Whatever it is, nothing is too little, nothing is too much. With that, I thank you all for your time and your attention. Until I see you all again next week, be safe and be well.